Meanwhile, in Hong Kong, thousands of people have taken to the streets as the ban against face masks has clearly backfired, and the people, in defiance of the government's order, have decided to come out and protest in huge numbers, despite the fact, firstly, that there is no permission that has been granted for these people to assemble on the streets in such large numbers, and secondly, the government has also said that face masks will no longer be permitted, and anyone who is found wearing a face mask could face prosecution. And these are live scenes that are being beamed across from Hong Kong, and this is what the situation looks like right now, as thousands upon thousands of people have taken to the streets in huge numbers in a bid to send the message across to the chief executive of Hong Kong, Carrie Lam, that they will not be cowed down. And also as a measure in a bid to ensure that the easy transportation of these protesters is not possible, the metro rail services had been suspended, and they have, we're given to understand, resumed for a short while in the morning. And most of the shopping malls and also the MTR stations have been shut out of fear for vandalism. And despite the heavy police presence, many protesters, in fact, had camped overnight and had publicly defied the mask ban. The matters, in fact, went out of control when another police officer had fired at the protesters in what is being said was an act of self-defense. And this is that disturbing video that is there on your screens, where an injured officer was seen firing shots after he was cornered and was attacked by the demonstrators. But the officer manages to then escape from that scene. And the protesters are out on the streets even as we speak. It is not clear as to how many people have taken to the streets, but quite clearly the administration's order that people cannot gather in such large numbers has had little impact. And it's also raining a bit in Hong Kong, but despite that, what is interesting is that umbrellas have been used as an accessory in these protests in Hong Kong. Remember, the protest that took place in 2014 in fact had been termed the umbrella movement of Hong Kong because of the fact that protesters turned out with their umbrellas to express their displeasure in terms of how the administration in Hong Kong was being undermined because it was taking instructions from Beijing. And also our correspondent Grace Lee gets you the latest in terms of what is unfolding on the situation on the ground in Hong Kong.
We're about 30 minutes away from the protest here taking off, and already we're seeing huge numbers of protesters, many of them wearing masks. If you take a look at the scene behind me, the area is completely inundated by protesters here already. I'm in Causeway Bay, Hong Kong's main shopping district, but you know, today has already been sort of a strange day here in Hong Kong. Most of the MTR stations have shut down, like you mentioned, and of course most of the shops here in Causeway Bay have been shut down as well, and that is pretty unprecedented here. We are still in Hong Kong's Golden Week holiday, where usually this is the busiest time of year for the shops here, so they're definitely losing out in the midst of all these protests. As for today, what we're really looking out for is how police and the government respond to today's protest. Pro-democracy lawmakers earlier launched a petition and brought to a court their concerns about the anti-mask law and the emergency law that Carrie Lam had invoked in order to put that ban in place. Now, it looks like that was rejected by the High Court, and the mask ban will still be in place today, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, especially seeing how, I mean, you can see behind me, most of the people here are